management system using our trust model description language, which we call TMDL. To do so, we provide developers an Eclipse plugin that help to create and validate TMDL description. So this Eclipse plugin is available at this URL, and also all the information is out on our website. So just download the plugin, install it into Eclipse, and we can now create a description file like this. We have to give a name to the file and the location, and then the TMDL is an XML description. So here we can find all the elements that compose TMDL file, and typically we have to choose the root element to be able to create a full description of a trust management system. So when the file is created, as you can see here, I don't know if you are familiar with EMF plugins, we have to click and choose an element, and then in the property view we have to fill all the attributes that will describe and define this element. So in our case here, TMDL, we have a name. We have to define the name of the trust model, called here eBay, and then the first thing that we have to do is to define at least one domain. Why? Because the domain represents a logical structure that administrates a consistent trust management system, and in each domain we define all the trust elements that will describe actually the trust management system. So domains, TMDL is flexible and can define many domains. For this example, we'll define only one domain, and we call it like that, and we give him a name called eBay. So inside each domain, we will define all the trust elements that describe given trust management system, and to do so, we define 5 categories of elements. Trust element. We have the role, which define the high-level representation of a group of category of participant. This participant can be a user like buyer, seller, manager, user, buyer, seller, customer, and can be also resources like server that manage the reputation of buyer and sellers, and so on. The next element is the matrix. The matrix allow to assess all trust relationships, and because there is no generally accepted matrix type, we rely on the flexibility of the complex type element of XML schema to define any kind of matrix. And further, we will show how we can create different variety of matrix. So the next category, the context, which include all the contexts where relationships happens. And then we have to define relations. Relation is it's most important trust element into our descriptions. So the trust relation is we define typically 3 categories of trust relation. As you can see here in this example, the first category represents the personal based trust relationship, which is the personal opinion of a given trustor about a trustee. This is what we call one-to-one, because it's from one trustor to one trustee. And the second type of relationship represents a transitive based relationship. It represents the trustor opinion, which is in this case Alice, about a trustee through many recommenders. And the last type of trust relationship called reputation based relationship, which represent the situation where recommenders delegate to a given trustor to manage the reputation of a trustee using the recommender's feedbacks. So for this examples of eBay, we are going to represent this figure, this scenario. We have here 4 roles: the server, the customer, the buyer, and the seller. Typically, the customer can be buyer or seller, or an end seller. So the customer inherits all the buyer and seller capability. We'll see how we can represent inheritance into our description model. And the customer, we trust the server, direct trust relationship, to manage the reputation of buyer and seller. And these reputations will be updated using seller feedback and buyer feedback, which are direct relationship, which represent the direct feedback about that have a seller about one buyer and vice versa. And one buyers enter the system and want to buy something for a given seller, he may ask the server about the trustworthiness of the seller and then create his personal opinion, which is transitive, which be computed transitively, because the buyer will ask the server to give the reputation of the seller. So this represents a transitive relationship that link the seller with the buyer and the buyer with the seller. So here I have a full example of the TMDL. This file can also be downloaded from the website. Here, as you can see, there is a domain called eBay. There is the 4 role: buyer, server, seller, customer. The customer, they inherit the buyer and the seller role. We have metrics. Actually, we define 3 kind of metrics. The first one called feedback, which is a sequence, and in this sequence we have the transaction, the ID of the transaction, which is a string. We can define a comment, which is also a string, and we have also defined a rate, which is an enumeration of negative, neutral, and positive opinion. And we have also the metric, the second metric is the eBay reputation, which is a complex type and is composed by 4 elements. The second element is the number of positive rate. The third is the number of neutral rate, and the fourth is negative rate, and the first one is the probability that is computed according to the 3 other elements. So, and the last metric is the probability, which is a value, float value, which is a float value. So for the context, we defined actually auction context, which is the context where eBay establish, where users in eBay establish relationships. Next, we have here all the relation that that are represented in this figure, this scenario. We can see here the relation, direct relation, which is eBay seller feedback, which is the feedback of the seller for the buyer. So we have the trustor role is the seller, the trustee is the buyer, the name of the relation is seller feedback, the matrix is metric eBay feedback that we defined before, and also the context is context octing. And here we have all the relation that we defined before. But most important, for each relation we have to define sometimes some operation in order to define how each relation is assessed. More details are available in the website to and describe all type of operation. In this example, we are just quickly we are going to illustrate some few examples. So let's say for the operation one-to-many, in order to get a value or to assess a transitive relationship, we have to define at least the from relation and the with relation. Concretely, here we have one transitive trust relationship, which is the buyer trustworthiness. And to compute this trust relationship, the seller have to ask the server to retrieve the reputation of the buyer. So the from relation is server trustworthiness, and the with relation is the buyer reputation. So in order to compute or to get this relation, we should compose these two relations, the from relation and the with relation. And here we have for the transitive get, we have the with relation, which is the buyer server trustworthiness, and the with relation is is actually the reputation of the corresponding seller. And the other one also is the set operation. Other example is for the many to one operation. Here we have the operation set, which is defined in this case for a reputation based relation. Here for a buyer reputation based relationship. As you can see, this reputation should be updated by seller feedback. So this reputation is updated with this seller feedback. So in this example, we have the with element, the with relation, which is the seller feedback. And we have also another important, which is the access from, because this relation will be provided and will be accessible from any customer. We have to define that this relation is accessible from this relation. So here we can see that the access from relation is the server trustworthiness, which is a direct relation. The decision element is the last part and represent the output of the trust model, which means all the decisions that are related to and based on an assessment of any trust relationship. So for eBay, for example, as you may know that eBay rewards best seller with top seller badge, and this badge is is performed. The decision is made by the eBay server, and the target is the eBay customer, which will be rewarded with this badge, and the relation that will be assessed in order to provide this badge are those relations. So this is some simple example to create and describe a trust management system. And when everything is done and all descriptions have, are defined, we can validate and be sure that all the elements are provided and nothing is missing. So thank you